Hey everybody, I promised another FCM replay and here it is, actually following directly on from the last one. We've ended up on Kharkov, and this time I have two FCMs in my platoon. Evil Hobo has also brought his, and we're playing with Indigoat in the IS. Now I decided to do something a little bit different on this map. I wasn't entirely sure where to go in my new FCM. I hadn't really played on this map before, and in fact I haven't really played anything similar to this tank on this map. Most of the mediums I played have been either very high alpha like my Centurion, or have been well armoured like my E50 or my Object 430. I hadn't really played anything particularly large and squishy. Now you may be wondering what exactly caused me to take a large, easily hit, weakly armoured heavy that it's really more of a medium in terms of playstyle, and it demands use of its mobility. What made me bring it down into the southeast corner of the map? Well, frankly, I don't have a fucking clue. It seemed like a good idea at the time. Because I didn't really have any other ideas on what to do, I decided to just head down here with my platoon, especially since our team seemed intent on leaving it mostly open, and we'd just sort of throw shit at the wall and see what stuck. So the enemy seem reluctant to push in, as with last time, when I was in my E50, and so I'm not going to give them a chance to rectify this mistake. I take full advantage as quickly as possible by pushing in. The biggest threat to my existence, the 100Y, is quickly dealt with by Evil Hobo, and the Churchill, although it's not really a huge threat, is the next to go down. No point in leaving it alive. Hellcat unfortunately gets away. The Rheinmetall has seen the writing on the wall and is going to hide behind the corner until we aren't paying attention to him. However, we do still have a Comet and a T-34, which we believe to be around the corner. As it happens, the Comet ran, the T-34 is still there. I take a hit from the Roomba, but thankfully it's a low roll, and I'm able to work my way back around the T-34, who is desperately trying to side scrape in a little alcove in the building. It's not working out so well for him, especially now. Our team has lost the north and center of the map, although we have the advantage in number of tanks alive. In terms of map control, we are not doing too well. You may notice our Hellcat and our Panther II are bravely hiding behind our artillery. Normally, this would be the kind of thing that would make me worry about losing imminent. Thankfully, that wasn't the case this time. As Evil Hobo still had all his hit points and was able to go back and apply pressure on the tanks threatening our cap, while Indigo and myself pushed through the enemy cap and around the north. Now, we could have just gone for the cap fast here, but inevitably something would have come back to reset us, and we did still have an advantage in numbers, if nothing else. So we figured we had everything really necessary to basically farm the enemy for damage at this point, while still being pretty safe in a win. It would have taken some spectacular fucking up by our team to lose this. Unfortunately, Hobo does actually get taken out. He did have a number of tanks he was trying to fight simultaneously there, and one of them was an IS-6. Now, the IS-6 normally isn't a huge threat unless it's platooned, but in this case, the enemy IS-6 knew how to aim, knew how to prioritize targets, i.e. shoot the other purples, and also, it's an IS-6. It has a pretty big gun, and the FCM doesn't have armor, so it's not really going to be able to bounce the D-25 shells. However, by this point, our team had actually started to wake up and were collapsing back in on the remaining enemy tanks. IS-6 got cleaned up, and then the rest of us just went around mopping up. Myself and Indigo worked on this Löwe. He kited it around the corner for me and got a good hit in. I finished it before I could get him. fairly confident in our Panther 2's ability, considering its full health, to finish off that IS. I hope that was the A25 that just did 123 damage. I hope it wasn't the Panther 2. In any case, if the Panther 2 does manage to fuck up, there's plenty of time for myself and Goat to get back to the cap. But between him and the Hellcat, the IS goes down pretty quickly. I sit here for a moment waiting for Goat to flush the Comet out before I realise he's actually flushing it the opposite direction to where I was looking. Probably should have been paying a bit more attention to the minimap, but oh well. I shift into the next main street looking for it. It's not here. So I go to team up with Goat, and right as I'm doing so, the Comet actually gets spotted going for our 304. Comet's nearly dead at this point, but he does manage to finish the 304. Of course, with a full health Panther 2 and myself and Goat still alive, there's not really much hope of the Comet pulling this out. Especially with only 41 hit points. I managed to track him, 0 damage there. I very narrowly avoid getting stuck, and then I'm able to finish off the Comet with a moving shot. Now, one thing I should note about the FCM actually that came into play, or nearly came into play right there, was because the tank is so long, it has a tendency to get stuck, especially if you cross trenches or try and descend down a very steep slope or a cliff, or you know, if you hit a rock or something, it's very easy to high center the tank as well. So it's something to watch out for when you're playing this. Another tank that tends to suffer from it, aside from the blatantly obvious TOG, is the 112, the Chinese premium heavy tank, which my first actual match on test playing it, I managed to high center the fucking thing on the narrow gully that runs across the south route of Mountain Pass. I was crossing that from the south spawn, of course, so I was in a position where I couldn't really afford to get stuck there. And this stupid fucking tank got stuck over that trench, straddling it, so I couldn't move in either direction. You've got to be really careful with long tanks. They can't quite get away with some of the things something like a Chaffee or a T69 could. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. Not really a massive game, but just a nice quick one showing that, perhaps even though the FCM isn't on paper suited to going to the southeast corner of this map and getting up close and personal, it can actually sometimes do it. There's not really any set place a certain type of tank really should go, although often I'll say, well, a heavy shouldn't be here, a medium shouldn't be there. It's situational. I don't necessarily mean they should never be there, I just mean that for the situation it's inappropriate. Sometimes you really actually do need to take heavies to places you wouldn't expect to find them, or mediums to places that you would think would be restricted to very heavily armoured brawling tanks. It just depends on the situation. You have to be able to adapt, you have to be very flexible, and if you're inflexible, well, ask GVN how that worked for them back in the old days of Clan Wars when they ran the same mouse strat against us something like 2 weeks in a row on Ruinberg. It just doesn't work. You become predictable, particularly on the NA server, because there's a smaller population, much smaller actually than the European or Russian servers, and especially on West, where you're going to be seeing the same people every match for hours at a time. Quite often I'll go play tanks for a couple hours, and if I'm on West, I will just see nothing but the same players every single match. Even switching tiers, they'll also be switching tiers. So you've got to avoid becoming predictable, and you've also got to avoid getting too set in your ways. So that, if something actually does develop, you need to be in a position where you can do something about it, not miles out of position and stuck because you're just following a sort of meaningless ritual almost. You can't let your play get to that stage. I know it does kind of come naturally. I remember, perhaps not the best example for tanks, but back in the day when I used to play Halo a lot, because it was the only first-person shooter I owned, it got to the point where I played the campaign so many times I could just literally autopilot through it. I would go through it, without even thinking. I'd perfectly finish off every single enemy in the map, sort of like, it was almost like clockwork. I just mentally wasn't there, but I could do it. And to an extent I do the same thing in tanks. Sometimes you'll see me just start driving off to a particular position, and then I'll stop and think, wait, why the fuck am I going here? Oh, it's because I'm used to going here and I was distracted. So, although it's, sometimes a good thing to have a solid idea of where you're going and what you want to do there, which often comes from having experienced it before, don't get too caught up in it. You can never really afford to let yourself play on autopilot, as appealing as it may sound sometimes. Also, hopefully this may have shown a bit more of the FCM's capabilities. Of course, this and the previous match in it, they're matches where the FCM is basically top tier, so it gets to beat up on all the school kids and take their lunch money, basically. But I think it does show basically how this thing works, how the gun handles, how it shoots, how it handles driving-wise. It's, like I said in the previous video, it's basically just a fat Panther 2. So if you are used to that tank, there's really not much to adapt to, aside from the crew being French, and the tank being a little bit longer. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video. I wish you the best of luck in the field, and hopefully, if any of you have picked up an FCM, perhaps after watching the last match, or just, because you were going to do it anyway, hopefully you'll be able to enjoy it. I personally really like the tank. Some of my matches have been a bit iffy. It tends to be a tank that's either, really good, or I have a really bad match where I'm not able to do anything because I just die too fast. It's one of those, it happens. But I think it's a tank that really does have a lot of potential. I think it gets overlooked a lot for other premiums. The Type 59 being the most obvious example for a Pref Tier 8. Yeah, it's a really powerful tank and it's pretty solid, but it's just boring. There's nothing interesting about playing the Type 59, whereas the FCM's something a little different. It's a heavy tank that actually, it's a medium tank that thinks it's a heavy tank, really, as opposed to Type 59, which is just like a down-tiered shitty T-54, or like a T-44 that actually bounces things sometimes but has a shitty gun in exchange for it. There's nothing exciting about playing the Type 59 anymore. Well, on that note, I will shut up, and I will hopefully see you in the next one.